The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
It is time for Darkside of the Pooch. He's Dr. Rab Stewart of the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. Dr. Rab, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. I'm happy to be here. Beautiful day.
Yes.
Let's get going.
I'm happy to have you. Rossbridge Animal Hospital, of course, is what he owns, and he is fantastic. I would follow him all over the country. If he moved to Oregon, I would follow him there. By the way, I heard a great story about a guy named Dr. John Artz, A-R-T-Z, who lives, I think, in Montana. And it was an NPR story, and evidently this guy was like the man in the neighborhood in this small little town. I want to say it was somewhere in Montana because he had a ranch and he had horses and this, that, and the other. But evidently every woman in this town who went to this veterinarian thought he was like Dr. McDreamy, thought he was like this unbelievable guy. As a matter of fact, some women actually used Dr. Artz as their password to their emails because their husbands found out. And all I could think about was Dr. Rab. I'm like, that he's our doctor. He's our Dr. Rab is what he is. Anyway, it was a great story. I was thinking about you. You can contact them 208-0301, 208-0301 at Rossbridge Vet on Twitter, of course on Facebook and their website as well. And they do fantastic work. And I'm telling you right now, if you're looking forward to that weekend trip to the beach or want to take away, man, make sure you call them now, book your boarding because they will fill up. Guinness Book of World Records happened about 10 hours ago. In Conqueiro, Portugal, Bobi, a purebred Rafeiro do Aletino. Am I saying it right? Rafeiro do.
Dude, I have no clue.
It's a Portuguese purebred dog. Okay. It's a medium-sized dog. Just set the Guinness Book of World Records for the oldest living dog on the planet. Do you want to take a stab at how old this dog is? He turned this age on Saturday.
24.
31 years old, this dog is.
Jeez.
Now, it's been documented by the Guinness Book of World Records. They had pictures. This dog is 31 years old. And by the way, they said, and it's a purebred, they said his mother made it to 18. His father made it to 19. So he had some lineage going on there, man.
Man, see, I'm continuing my trend of just being so far off on these numbers that you give me.
I mean, I'm almost thinking 31. That's a really long time. I mean, for some people, that's half your life. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. Now, obviously, you love your dog and you want him to live as long as possible, and he's still going. 31 years of age.
If the years are good, then let's keep them going.
Yes,
it's when those years get bad that you're like, maybe it's time to go.
Yeah, just like Dr. Rab and Tony Kurre, man, pull the plug on us if we start.
Yeah, that's right.
If we can't take care of ourselves. All right, info at TonyKurreRadio.net. Info at TonyKurreRadio.net. We got a lot of mutt mail to get into today. I have another story I want to get into. Beth in Nashville wants to know how to be a dog handler. She has seen the Westminster thing. Is that what it's called? The Westminster Dog Show?
Yeah, there's a bunch of dog shows.
And she has seen it, and she's like, I'm really good with dogs. She does some puppy training videos on TikTok. She said, how can you be a dog handler? Do you need to go to school for that? And does it pay well?
Man, you don't have to go to school. A lot of the handlers are the breeders themselves. So if you want to get into that, probably the easiest way to do it is you start breeding dogs, and then they're your dogs that are in the show. Yeah. Now, also the trainers, a lot of times the trainer of the dog will be the one that's handling it in the show because the dog is used to responding to the trainer. So I would say my advice would be if you want to be a handler in a dog show, either make it your own dog or grow your training business and train dogs that are in the show, and then you'll be the handler. As far as how much they make, they're going to make what a high-end trainer would make. And I mean, I know trainers that they work with a dog for 7 to 14 days and they get the dog trained well. And I mean, it's a couple of grand per dog. So, if you're also handling the dog, you're probably going to make more than that, but really just depends on what your workload is. And then if you get to where you're maxed out, you hire people and teach them how to train the way that you train.
There you go. All right, great question. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. And by the way, our show is always brought to you by Ed's Pet World, in business for nearly 50 years down there in beautiful Homewood. For any exotic pet, they got you covered. I get all my fish down there. I just got some guinea pigs a couple of weeks ago. We got gerbils. We got ball pythons. They got parrots and parakeets. They got sugar gliders. They got crocodiles, whatever you want, water turtles. And of course, Seth also has Seth's Toy Closet. It's about a 50-50 shot. He's also opening up a brand new brick and mortar for that. They've got all kinds of great toys, everything from Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, watches, unboxed stuff. They buy, sell, and trade. Check out Ed's Pet World, 879-1331. Kelly in Southside said she just recently got a puppy and it's got a bad case of the hiccups. And it's had hiccups for almost a week. Is this something I should be concerned about?
No, as long as the dog is still eating and drinking and running around and playing, it's definitely not something that you have to worry about. It's not something that I would seek treatment for. If it starts to get to where the puppy is not eating, it's not drinking, and it's not playing, and it's not resting and sleeping, and then you might want to get some, medical assistance. But really the only thing that you can do is kind of relax those muscles. And maybe that's, if it really gets debilitating, which is, the only reason you'd want to see anybody, you might have to give it something to help it relax, help those muscles relax, give it a little muscle relaxer, and then probably be fine. But it's not worth doing that if everything else is normal.
What if you can get your dog to hold his eardrums and drink a glass of water and hold his breath for 15 seconds afterwards? Will that work?
It could potentially work. What I used to do is I would.
Can you scare the hiccups out of a dog?
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah,
you probably can if you can actually scare it. But I used to, when I would get them, I would instead of, if you imagine you're holding a glass and instead of drinking it like you would normally drink it, you put your mouth on the other side of the glass.
Yeah.
And then you lean over and try to drink the water that way, and that works for me like a charm.
Yeah, I've done the, if you put your thumbs on your little tabs in your ears, push them in and drink an entire glass of water and hold your breath for 10 seconds, it has worked every single time in my life. I've never. How
do you hold both ears and drink a glass of water?
Well, first of all, I got big hands. Thank you very much. But you put your thumbs on your ears, then you use your other four fingers to hold the glass, and then you drink a glass of water. And then it's important that you take a deep breath, hold your breath, and then let your breath out easy, and it works every single time. My daughter too. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Mutt Mail here at Darkside, the Pooch. You can hear the show at least 5 days a week. It's one of my favorite shows, not only because I do it with Dr. Reb. He's a good friend of mine, and we just laugh and have a good time. Kobe in Inverness wants to know, what is a dog? Is it a tater test? Titer test?
Titer
test?
Yeah.
Okay.
Titer.
What is that?
Whoa, there's a ton of them. You're checking for a basically your immunity to a certain virus.
Okay.
Or you're checking you're basically, like, for example, probably the best way I can do is give you an example. A lot of people get their rabies titers checked. And so it's a blood test. You send it to a lab and they tell you if you have a high immunity or an infection to something. So if I were to go to the doctor and say, hey, I need to be sure that if I get bit by a rabid dog, that my rabies vaccine is still going to protect me. So he would check my rabies titer. But you can also check titers for viruses. So a lot of times we'll, have a cat or a dog come in and they'll have some disease that, we're suspicious about. And so we'll submit a lab sample and send it off, and they'll come back with, this dog has a titer to this virus, and it's a very high titer. So it might indicate there's a current infection, or it might be a low titer, which means the pet is getting over a certain infection.
There you go. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Billy in Navarre Beach. I believe this may be the first email we've gotten. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Do dogs comprehend the size of their treats? It's a great question, because speaking of dog handlers, they get those little nibbles. I mean, they're barely anything to eat, but they're receiving something, right? They're receiving. And then, I gave my dog last night, Rainer, I had Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I took the entire skin off of a thigh because it's just too much fat. And of course, it was huge, and he chomped it down. It went down his throat in about a half a second. Does it matter when you're trying to influence a pet to do a trick or help it or award it something? Do they even know how much they're eating? Will a dog go, wow, that was a really big bite, or are you better off just making 10 different treats out of one large one?
I think that they are just very in the moment, and they will they will just eat until there's nothing left. And whether that is a small amount or a large amount, I don't think it really registers to them like, oh, that was a small portion.
Yeah.
Like I kind of got screwed here.
Yeah.
I think that they just think, okay, well that's over. I'm going to go do something else now.
I think you're right. I just rolled over for that. I really believe that because and it's amazing because we got a bag of begging strips and Rainer loves those. And my daughter gave him an entire bag of begging strips the other day. And I was like, Lila Jane, I said, you could have broken one begging strip into 100 pieces and he would have known the difference. But those begging strips, they do clean you out. I'll tell you that much. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. It was crazy. Kim in Birmingham, we saw our first firefly last night. This email just came in this morning. And our pug loves to chase them and eat them. Is it okay? And are there any other types of insects that we should have our pets avoid eating? I used to have a dog that used to love those carpenter bees, and I loved it. He'd catch those carpenter bees mid-flight, and he didn't get stung, I guess, and he would just eat them out of the sky. Is there any type of insect that our pets should not eat?
I'll tell you that if they eat enough of the fireflies, if you look down in their ears, you'll be able to see the light.
That would be really cool if that was true.
You can't.
That would be super cool. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're, the same insects that give us issues, like mainly stinging insects, you got to look out for those. But, just random things, beetles and flies and things like that, even carpenter bees, stuff doesn't have a stinger. That stuff's not going to hurt them.
Yeah.
An interesting thing is there are certain codes that if a dog or cat eats them, they can have they can drool a lot, get real nauseous. It can affect their nervous system. So there are certain toads, and it happens. Same thing will happen in people if you eat a toad. You can eat frogs, and dogs can eat frogs, but there's a big difference between frogs and toads. But insects are usually fine as long as they're the same kind of insects that won't hurt you or I.
Okay. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Welcome to Tony Curry Radio. You're hearing the show hopefully for the third or fourth time. We love that. It airs at least 5 times a week here, and we do fresh shows every single week. And thanks to Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital for being a big part of that. And special thanks, of course, to Ed's Pet World for being our sponsor here. Ed's Pet World, 879-1331, area code 205, in business for 50 years. Great toys and super duper exotic pets. Yvette in West End says that, like humans, most women go through a birthing period, and then after that birthing period, they can no longer give birth. Is that true for cats and dogs?
Yeah, I mean, they get to a point where they can't, their reproductive system kind of stops working. Now, they don't go through like a quote unquote like menopause thing, that people do, but usually it is more of an issue of the rest of their body cannot handle it. So it's more of an issue like they don't walk well anymore. They've got bad hips, or they just can't, they're not strong enough to, push out a litter. It's stuff like that. It's not as if like they're going through menopause and things stop, the reproductive tract stops working. It's more as if the rest of their body just won't allow them to go through the delivery process.
Okay.
So you got it's about the overall health of the animal.
All right. Again, we take all your emails, and occasionally we get some that just about Dr. Rab, and I love these. I like these more than the other ones. Michael in Montgomery wants to know, what website does Dr. Rab visit most frequently?
I'll give you like a couple of different, genres. The one that I go to the absolute most is our practice software, because I'm on it like all the time, like all day, every day, even on the weekends. But for a non-work website, I'm on CBS Sports all the time because I'm always checking the Braves scores. I'm a big Braves fan. So I got my CBS Sports app. I'm checking, the lines and reading the articles almost every day. And then also my social media is Twitter. So I'll get on Twitter and just kind of see what's going on. I'm a lurker though. I don't do a lot of posting. Because you just kind of get piled on Twitter. So a lot of music. I follow a lot of music stuff, of course. Follow a lot of sports stuff on Twitter. So those are my I mean, might be my 3 only websites I ever go to.
Okay, there you go. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Another question that has nothing to do related to pets, and I can't wait to hear the answer on this. This is William in Gulf Shores. Wants to know, what would Dr. Reb's perfect concert lineup be? 3 bands only. Ooh, I can name the first one. I mean, you're going to go with Fish, right?
Yeah, I mean, Fish would be up there, but I would want to pick if we had a time machine, like if we could pick the eras, the eras of Fish.
All right, so you do 3 different Fishes with 3 different eras?
I wouldn't do 3 different Fishes. I would probably go like early 1998 or late 1997. That's where I would pick a Fish show from probably that era. They had some really famous shows in April of 1998. It was called the Island Tour, and it was all these islands in the Northeast, like not like Caribbean islands, but it was like Rhode Island, and I think they had some in Nassau and New York. So those shows are super famous. But I think I would, if I could put bands back together that no longer have their living members. Led Zeppelin would be way up there, and then I would probably have my third one. I'd have to think long and hard. The Beatles didn't really tour during the era of the Beatles that I loved. Yeah. Once they started, I think with maybe Revolver or Rubber Soul, they kind of quit touring, and the stuff before that I didn't just love. So if I could see like a rooftop, like a rooftop concert that the Beatles did back then, that's the good Beatles to me. But also Pink Floyd. After Syd Barrett. I don't really like Syd Barrett stuff. It's just too out there for me. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I guess maybe I missed the boat. Maybe I should be British because all my bands are British.
The Pink Floyd show down at Legion Field, it was a few months after the U2 and the Rolling Stones christened Legion Field with just massive shows. Was one of the most unbelievable shows that I've ever seen. They had surround sound. They had speakers around the entire stadium, which was unbelievable. And then if you ever get a chance to see Ringo Starr's All-Star Band, they're starting that thing back up. I think he's almost 80 years old, but he's got Colin, what's his face from Men at Work. He takes
Colin Hay.
Colin Hay, yeah. Colin Hay's been with him for a long period of time, but I think
he's awesome.
He is.
He's awesome.
He's got the lead singer from Mr. Mister. He's got a Billy Joel player, and so they play different songs from each one of the bands that are in his band. He just sits back there and taps the drums, and so you get all these different songs from these different. Todd Rundgren was in the band the last time I saw it. He did "Love Is the Answer" and "We Got to Get You a Woman." Fantastic, and they obviously play a couple Beatles songs too. It's fantastic, so it's really. I
would love to see that.
Yeah. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. This is a Darkside the Pooch Great Vet Show. We answer all your emails. And this one goes back to Petland here. Steve in Grand Rapids says, has Dr. Reb ever revived an animal from the dead? And then I have a follow-up question for you. Have you ever brought an animal back to life?
Well, yeah, I have. And it's not as awesome as it seems. So, there are times when we are like doing anesthesia on an older pet. Like, you get to where just you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. Like, let's just say an old dog or cat has a problem and they're not going to be able to live with it. But we also know that anesthesia could be a big risk. Mm-hmm. So the owner assumes the risk and says, look, just do what you can. I understand that anesthesia is a big risk because this pet is, reaching its maximum age anyway. So, I mean, it's not very often, but yeah, there are times where we'll anesthetize an animal and it doesn't do well. It crashes for whatever reason. And so there've been several that we have brought back by giving them rescue drugs, and then you turn off the anesthesia and say, okay, well, this didn't happen. We're going to wake this thing up because if we keep going, it is going to die. So yeah, but I haven't, if someone rushes in. Usually if we have a pet that is, coding and it's at home and it's being brought in, it's just too late. You can't. Have
you ever saved a pet that you thought there's no way I can save this animal and you even surprised yourself?
Yeah. I mean, and also like, if you take away, like, let's say it won't be fatal, let's just say it's going to be terribly debilitating and you just say, this thing's going to get a massive infection, or this thing's never going to heal, or, even if it's not a life or death situation, you just think that, maybe this will turn into a chronic thing that we'll see if it'll heal. And a few months later, we'll have to put the pet to sleep. And then they do great. And it's just, dogs and cats and animals in general. Some of the stuff that they can recover from is incredible.
Yeah. And let me preface this last question here, because you are the best, and you are the best. I've had animals my entire life. I've been going to veterinarians my entire life. Your bedside manner is unbelievable, and everyone that is your customer knows this about you. Tiberius in Hoover wants to know, what is Dr. Ab's biggest misdiagnosis of an animal? That's a loaded question there. Have you ever seen something
where
you saw something?
Loaded, but yeah. I'll be happy to answer it.
Okay.
So there was usually when something like this happens, the pet has another ailment that can be a red herring. So there was this cat that came in, and it was just acting weird. It was just acting painful, and the history of the owner, they didn't really know what was going on. They couldn't really pinpoint anything. It was just like, my cat's not acting right. She's not doing well. Mm-hmm. It's okay. So, we do an exam, and the cat has fleas on it. Okay. So I say, all right, well, cat's not acting right. It's got some fleas. The cat was still eating. It was still drinking. It was, doing its normal thing. It was just, quote unquote, acting weird. Yeah. So, we put the cat on some preventative, kill the fleas, and that's fine. So then it's several months later, we get a report that the cat was euthanized because it had a mass under its tongue, and it ended up having cancer in its mouth. So, and that was something that I missed. And, like I said, a lot of times it's because, this doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And it's because there was something else going on with the animal. But, either fortunately or unfortunately, the owner decided to have a second look. And this was some time ago, it wasn't like the next day. Like, the cat kind of got a little worse. And so they had a look in the mouth, and there it was. There's a tumor under the tongue. And that, and I've seen this person since then, and we still have a great relationship. And I when I see her, I tell her, your cat taught me something, and it's a lesson and this happened several years ago. And I told her, your cat taught me something, and it's a lesson that I've never forgotten. But that is why it's called practice. No one's perfect. No one gets it right every time. But I learned from it. And now, as long as the cat doesn't try to eat me, I always look in their mouth.
And there you have it. Anything new and exciting going on at Rossbridge Animal Hospital you'd like to share with us before we let you go?
Man, I would like to take a second and brag on, we have a new veterinarian, and she's been there for about a month. And her name is Christy Johnson. Okay. And she is fantastic. We hired her, like I said, a month ago. She's great with clients. She's great with pets. She's super knowledgeable. She has really elevated our practice. And so I just to let people know, we've got, now we don't just have one great doctor there. We have two.
There you go. That's wonderful. And I'm sure the bunch of people who are listening to the show and hear that show will let her know that she's doing a great job. And it's a great way to let her know, as your boss, that she's doing a wonderful job. And I know she takes a lot off your plate. And that's got to be a relief for you to know that when you have to get out of there for a couple of days, that everything's going to be copacetic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love that. All right, the show always brought to you by Ed's Pet World. They've been in business for nearly 50 years, 205-879-1331. Angie, Seth, the entire crew. I love these folks. I get all my animals from down there. I've gotten snakes and gerbils, and I get my rats from down there for my snakes and fish, and they've got sugar gliders, and they've got tarantulas, and they've got cockatoos and Amazon parrot. They got everything down there. It's super, super cool. Check it out. Kids, you know all about it. It's great to go down there. Plus, Seth's Toy Closet is humming and drumming, doing a great work. If you got something up in your attic, buy, sell, or trade, still in the box, stuff's worth some big-time bucks. Check out Seth's Toy Closet down at Ed's Pet World, or his brand new location in Homewood, opening soon. Dr. Ebb, as always, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Enjoyed it, man. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you next week.
All right, bud.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.